Kelly here, and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Honeybee Stamps. Today, we're mostly going to concentrate on this hummingbird and the Lovely Layers bugs, but since I am making full cards, I'm also using a lot of the Lovely Layers flowers, including the water lily, the anemone, the, what else? There's a lot of them. They'll all be listed below. And then I'm using the This One's for the Girls set. If you guys have been following along, you know that I have been concentrating on making some Mother's Day cards to donate. So what is the whole point of this video? I love the look of Iridescence, and there are ways that you can get it, different ways that you can get it, and we're going to go over a couple of them. So the first one that you see there is already laid out there is this iridescent glitter paper. That's one option. The other one, which I think is fairly obvious, is hot foil. I'm not going to be using that one today, but you can use hot foil. These colors are both called opal. So there's opal in the glimmer hot foil, which you would use if you have a hot foil plate. And then there's opal, which is this one that I used for an alcohol ink. And then apparently my cheap behind could not throw it away. But anyway, this one's opal and it's in the decofoil. And this foil you use with a laminator. So we have a couple of those. There's also mirrored cardstock that you can buy that has a holographic or an opalescent view. In order to use the deco foil, you do need something with toner. So you either need a pre-printed, like I have the toner card fronts here, or you need some other way to make the tone or the foil stick. This embossing powder that I'm showing you is from Brutus Monroe, and it is specifically to be used with foil. The one that is tried and true that I have used a whole bunch of times and is probably the cheapest option is Perfect Pearls. So you can use Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearls, or you can use another colored one. This one is turquoise. There's another one that we're going to play with a little bit now, but for now, let's do some experimenting. So again, you can buy this in cardstock already done, but let's say you're like me, and most of the time I don't really know what I'm going to be using for a project until I'm making it for the project. These are some DIY things you can do with things that you may already have. I had this embossing powder, this foil embossing powder, but I had never used it before. So in my experiment, I swiped on some Versamark onto regular cardstock, but then also to a scrap piece of vellum that I had, because I really liked the idea for wings. You know, I'm using the Lovely Layers bug set for it to be both transparent and foiled. So I wanted to see how it would work on both. Now, I read the instructions. It didn't seem to be any different than any other embossing powder that you would use. You know, you use an embossing ink, you add the powder to it, and then you heat it until it is melted. And then you would go ahead, put your foil on, and feed it through your laminator, which we're going to do here in just a minute. But since we are doing an experiment, I also wanted to compare and see if the foil would stick to just a clear embossing powder. I have in the past used foil with embossing powder and had it work fairly well. So I was trying to see if there was a benefit to using a specific embossing powder that had foil properties. So this is our other little test piece. I am just using clear embossing powder. Now, I will be very honest with you. You guys know I believe in transparency. This embossing powder is old. I've had it for probably almost the length of my entire crafty career. I've had it for a long time. And you can see even on the paper that the clear is a bit more on the yellow side versus the very clean white clear on the other side that we used. That is that Brutus Monroe foil embossing powder. But I'm treating them just the same, heat setting them until they're cool, doing my practice pieces on both cardstock and vellum. And then we're going to move on to the laminating portion. There still will be more experiments to come, but this is where I decided to start. I'm labeling them so that I don't get them confused. And once I, have to trim them down, doing both the vellum and the cardstock. And then I'm also going to foil a piece of this toner paper so we can see the difference. So we'll be doing the two vellum pieces, the two cardstock pieces, and then the toner piece, which is kind of like the control, because the toner is the intended use for this particular type of foiling. So we're going to lay that all out on, and I just put it on a spare piece of cardstock so that I could keep everything together. And then we're going to put this into our carrier sheet, place our opal foil. This is the decofoil. Remember, this will not work with glimmer hot foil. That's a whole different process. And then I have let my laminator heat up, and I'm going to go ahead and feed my carrier sheet in with the fold side first. So I'm just going to let this run through, and then we will see what we will see, whether or not it works or not. While we're waiting for this to go through, I do just want to very quickly mention, you guys know that I rave about Honeybee's stickers. They're pearl stickers and they're gem stickers. Those are on sale right now through this weekend, through May 5th, along with all of their wax stampers and paper pads. So if you're interested in picking up any of those things, plus their retirement sale is still going on. So here we can see that the toner paper almost completely foiled in its entirety. This is the foil embossing powder on the regular cardstock. It did work somewhat. The clear did not work almost at all. For the vellum, this is where the foil embossing powder really shined. It worked the best. And then the clear worked somewhat. So these are not great results. You can see here how much foil was left behind from each space. The one that's completely clear is the toner sheet. So I then moved on to experimenting with the perfect pearls. Now, if you watch my channel, you know I love perfect pearls. I use them all the time. They're very much a go-to in my craft room, and I'm a big fan of them. I like the pearlescence that they leave. If you buy a kit, it comes with this brush, and basically you just want to pounce on your perfect pearls. Here, I'm just trying two different colors, perfect pearl in the color perfect pearl, and then I'm also going to try turquoise. After you pounce it on, you want to clean off your brush, and then fairly aggressively, you want to kind of buff off everything that's left behind. And again, I'm trying this on cardstock and I am trying it on vellum. I'm just wiping up any of that excess powder, and then I'm going to move on to the turquoise. So perfect pearls bind with water. So after you pounce them on and then dust off your excess, you want to kind of like mist your water bottle in the air and kind of bring them through, like just kind of fly them through very gently. And so I was a little bit apprehensive about whether or not this would work with the vellum, because I knew once I added the moisture to the vellum, I was likely going to get spots, or I was going to get curling, because it's just not meant to react like paper does. But you can see here how that shine, that iridescent shine, is really fantastic. You can, I do want to say, and I will show you a little bit later on, you can purchase iridescent, I think there's actually called pearlescent, vellum, or cardstock. You can purchase both. So you wouldn't have to make your own. But if you are a person, again, who's like me, then here's how we're doing it. So I was thinking after I did my first experiment that the foil on the vellum worked pretty well with the foil embossing powder. But I'm thinking maybe if I did 2 coats of it so that there was more to melt when you put it through the laminator, it would do better. So now I am going to do it a second time on a bigger piece. And I'm doing the same thing, swiping on my Versamark, putting on my foil embossing powder. I'm going to heat set it. And then instead of just running it through, I am going to do it a second time. Now, if you work really quickly with embossing powder while it is still hot and melted, you can add embossing powder to it again, basically skipping that Versamark step, but it's really kind of hit or miss whether where it's going to stick to. So I find just letting it cool down completely and then doing the Versamark a second time gives me better results. But again, you can do whatever works for you. So this time we're doing 2 layers of the foil embossing powder, and this worked so much better. You'll see here in just a second. I think there was just more to hang on to for the foil, because there was another layer of powder to melt it. So when it went through. The only issue, and you'll see here in just a second what my issue is that with the 2 layers, my vellum did start to curl. See how it's curled up there? Consequently, because of that curl, when I went to go put my decofoil, the opal foil through, it ended up a little bit wrinkly, and I think this is because it wasn't down flat before I ran it through. I should have probably taped it down, but I didn't. I just held it with my hand, put it in the carrier sheet, and then fed it through. Again, make sure you preheat your laminator. It should be nice and hot before you're doing this. Mine has a little ready button on the side there. You can see that it's lit up green. But with the curling, it did leave like some ripples in the foil. Everything is fully foiled. You'll see it here in just one second because I literally could not even wait until I got my laminator off my desk. I checked it right away. And this is probably one of my favorite looks. So here you can see when we remove it, now it's a clear, complete adhesion, but it does have those little bit of ripples in it. Now, because I was die cutting mine, it didn't really matter. Here, these are distress stains, mica stains, and I wanted to try them on the vellum to see if I could get a colored iridescence. And Amy Rasavi from Prairie Paper Ink actually recently did a video where she used the hummingbird and did them with distress stains. I would highly recommend you check that out. It's fantastic. But I wanted to see if I could get it to work on the vellum. So I didn't like the splotches, so I added a little bit of water to see if I could get it to start moving. And you can see how much it is curling up on me. This is probably not the best way to use it. I'm going to show you that it is still a workable piece. And I'm just going to keep kind of like pressing this in and getting as much on there. I eventually resorted to spraying it, directly while it was down and then getting a paintbrush and kind of moving that around. Again, it is very wrinkled. Like, I don't want you to think it's perfectly smooth. It's not. But it did hold the shimmer from the mica stain. It held it really nicely. And you'll see when we start to dry it, as the paper is kind of curling up, you can see the lights start to catch that sheen. And it didn't take very long to dry because it's vellum. So it was a pretty quick process, but it kept the sheen from both of the colors that I chose, which I think was Snow Flurries and Cocktail. But you can see it is very shimmery. It has that, iridescent look that we would look for on insect wings, on, hummingbirds, like their foliage is iridescent. Their plumage is what I should say. So now I'm trying it again. You do have to shake these up. You want to get the mica off the base. But now I'm going to try the vellum again, but this time I've taped it, and then I'm going to just paint it on. At the end, I'm going to spray it because I can't help myself. But to start with, I'm just getting a wet paintbrush. I'm not intentionally adding any water to this, just the wetness of my paintbrush. But I put the blue in the center, and then I put the green, which I believe is Merriment, up at the top, faded into that blue, and then I'm going to take the pink from the bottom and also fade it into the blue. I wasn't sure if I wanted more of a pinky blue kind of fade or a tealish color. So that's why I decided to do the whole sheet, and it would give me more to kind of experiment with. This was giving me a hard time kind of about getting the shimmer on there. So that is why I opted to spray it directly on to the paper and then just go in with the paintbrush and kind of just go all the way down the vellum. And then once that's done, I am going to have some blank spots where my tape is. But again, I'm die cutting, so that doesn't bother me at all. If you wanted a full panel for like an A2 size card, I would just cut your vellum a little bit bigger so you have room to tape it. So I went ahead and dried this down, and it's hard to see because of the lighting. I will pick it up here in just a second and show you that it is iridescent. It does keep that shine from the mica stain. But it's maybe not as, like, the paper's a little bit wrinkled. It's not going to be as smooth as if you purchased one, but you can still see the shine there. This will work. This is the one that we use where we, sprayed it down and didn't tape it down. And then here in just 1 second, I will bring in that pearlescent vellum that you can just purchase if you don't want to make your own. So that way you can see here. This is the difference in them. This one I'm holding in my hand is pre-made. No wrinkles, nothing like that. So now that I have figured out what I'm going to be using, I am going to use the toner paper with the opalescent foil for the body of my dragonfly. I am going to use the decofoil that we put over the vellum with the foil embossing powder for the wings of my dragonfly. I'm going to use the glitter iridescent paper for my butterfly, and I am going to use this pre-made kind of iridescent shimmer vellum for the wings for my bee. This is probably the most subtle of the shimmers. And then what you see on the left is the just plain white cardstock, and that houses everything for the hummingbird, and then the body of the bee that will need to be colored that's not going to be iridescent. And for the body of the hummingbird, I am going to be using perfect pearls. So these are all of the ways that I chose to incorporate them into my cards. The nice thing about the glitter paper is there's a couple of different ways that you can color it. Now, I really like bold color, so I chose to do mine with alcohol inks. You could, if you don't own alcohol inks, but you do own alcohol markers and have refills, you could use those. You can also color these with your alcohol markers. It just makes me a little nervous about the nib because it is a kind of a rough texture. But you could also use, ink blending over these for a more subtle color. There's a lot of different ways. If you like the look of glitter, but you don't necessarily have glitter cardstock, you could also color them whatever color you want and then put a glitter paste over top. I have a video about that as well. So here I did yellow and orange, and then I decided I wanted to add in a little bit of pink. You're going to see, like, this has a paper backer, and so you'll see when I flip it over that it saturates through the entirety of the paper, but it still holds its integrity. Even though we're putting like a ton of alcohol. I was trying not to get it on my finger, so I was just using a spare piece of cardstock. And of course I got the body of my butterfly, but I'll go ahead and dry these down. As they're drying, you'll be able to see the drier they become, the more that iridescence shines through, where it looks like we lost it a little bit when we added the color. I promise you it does come back once it's completely dry. So I'm going to use my black marker just very lightly to color in the body of my butterfly, and this is on the glitter paper, so you can see you can color them with alcohol markers, and that does work. And then for the top piece, which is actually just cut out of regular cardstock, I'm going to do the black on the bottom, and then I'm going to go in with a darker gray, just so there's a little bit of separation, and then we'll go ahead and put this butterfly together. Something to note. You will see this video is already 30 minutes long. I made 4 cards, which involved a lot of coloring and piecing everything together. So this video will only concentrate on the iridescent properties that we are using and creating for the images of the butterfly, the bee, the hummingbird, and the dragonfly. I will post the second part to this video with with the completion of all the cards and all the coloring of the flowers and everything like that. That will be in a part 2, which I hope to plan to put up tomorrow. The purplish blue wings you see here are ones that I actually cut out of the wrinkled piece of vellum that we did. That would work great, but I ultimately decided to go with the foil wings. They're just so cool. Okay, like I can show it to you on camera and I can show you all the shine, but in real life, super cool. Something to note about this though, I did notice the more that I touched the wings, that there were pieces of the embossing that kind of flaked off. So that is something to keep in mind. In the end, I'm going to be honest, they weren't really transparent because of the foil. So it may be worth it to just do it on regular cardstock and just have the foil shine, because it does kind of pull off of the vellum the more you touch it. And if you're mailing this card, like, who knows, the rubbing against the envelope or something, I'm not sure how it would hold up. I have 1, 2, 3 pieces that kind of flaked off, and the rest seems to be intact. But that's just FYI. For the bee, these wings were cut out of that vellum that we taped down and then painted with the mica stains, but I do have to color the bee body. I find it is easier to just do the whole thing with my yellows, and I'm adding shading just kind of like the left and right hand sides. This is going to give me my highlight in the center of my little bee. I find it easier to do the yellow first because I'm going to do my stripes black as well as his little legs. When I was deciding which stripes to color black, there isn't a right or a wrong, but I did them based on the antennas, like at the top. I didn't want it to be black right next to black, so that is how I picked the middle one for the top headpiece, and then, you know, just every other one as it went down the entirety of the bee body. So again, we're really just adding shading kind of to the left and right hand sides. There is one line of black along the through the middle, because that's where the head is connecting to his little body. So there would be some extra shading there. And this is just, it's a black 100, a C9, and a C7. And then that C7 will be my lightest portion of the black for the legs as well as my little stripes. You don't have to be perfect, you know, with your little lines. I tried to get them as close to the embossed lines as I could, but they aren't 100%. And that's okay. I don't think anybody's going to be investigating my bee that closely. So to put this together, really, really simple. You have your bee body, then you put down your wings, and then the head goes right over the middle section of the wings to hold that in place. And then you have these shimmery little blue iridescent wings for your bee. The most time consuming, far and away, is the hummingbird. This is the first time that I've put the hummingbird together, so there was definitely a learning curve for me about where the pieces parts would go, just like there is with every Lovely Layers for me. But I do pull up the download, like the guide. I pull that up so that I can pay attention to how they have it laid out there. Those are so helpful. And if you don't know where to find them, just go onto the Honeybee site. They have a search bar. You can just put whichever set you're using. For me, I had a lot of them open because I opened them for every single one. For the bugs, for the hummingbird, for all the flowers I used. So I had all these tabs open. Like my mom's mind. All my tabs are open. And then I could just bring them up as I was working on them. So I don't even know if my hummingbird exists in real life. I know there's blue and green hummingbirds and there's pink and green hummingbirds, but I chose to do a blue and green with a pink kind of throat. And you may have noticed when I was coloring the pink, I was doing like little dots, and there is tons of dimension that is pressed into the hummingbird from the dies, but I just really kind of wanted to play up that texture. And in order to create that texture, to like simulate it, I use the dots to do that. Just like with my flowers, I like to go in and mark where my shadows need to be on the body. So hummingbirds are beautiful and very colorful, and, they have this iridescent plumage that changes in the light. But they're also on the inside, when their wings open, the underneath feathers are not iridescent. They're typically more of like a gray or a brown. That is why you see me using the grays here, because I wanted him to be as realistic as possible. Like, I just wanted him to look the way that he was supposed to look. So I've used the pieces to mark where my shadows need to be. And then for the wing that is completely open, I did more of like striations in between the feather lines that are embossed there. And then there's a blue piece that kind of goes over the top of it. You'll see me like adding the shading there. And then also to his head and his little, like his throat. I added some shading there. There is a piece in between his wing and like the bottom of his body. I completely missed. Don't worry, I'll go back and get it. Don't fret about it. I'll go back and get it. But so just worked with the grays to do that. When you see me going back and adding the lines around the edges, that's just so those white edges don't show through and everything looks like it's supposed to look. We're going to go back to doing those dots for the hummingbird. And we're doing our darkest green color, and then just, working through them like we normally would. So you're still going to go darkest to lightest, or you can go lightest to darkest if you want. But we're just doing it with dots instead. And then once we get out to the lightest color, we kind of uses that to blend. For the tail feathers, these are not like modeled, so the dots don't make sense here. They're much smoother. So again, following the embossing that's there, I'm doing those same kind of striations that you saw me do with the gray, with the open wing. I'm using that for the tail feathers as well. Here, it's a piece, the green that we colored is the piece of the head, but then that goes back to the wing. So I'm just coloring that in again so that white doesn't show through. That's all that's happening there. For here, there is a kind of back piece. It's his back that ends up being blue that is on the base. So basically when you're putting lovely layers together, you just really want to look for anywhere that has embossed detail, because if it has embossed detail on that layer, then it's going to show. So I use the blue for his top of his open wing, for this back wing here, for his back, and then for his tail feather as well. But because I want them to go together, I want them to, look iridescent, like he's turning in the light, I am also going to add some blue dots to my green section up at the top, and then some green to my blue sections, so that way it will look as if, he's maybe catching some sunlight in, some different areas that would show the different colors that he is and how they kind of all mix in together. I did not go super heavy-handed with on the blue with the green. I went with one of the lighter greens, a YG03. Same thing with the green. I added shading, I think with the B02, I think is the one I did it with. And then for this wing, most of it is pretty smooth, and it's a small piece, I know, but the front portion does have that mottled kind of impression. So I did some dots at the beginning. I will add some green to that very sparingly, and then the rest of it will be the blue. The last piece that we have to do is the other side of the tail feather, and that is going to, again, I'm going to just hit the edge so that it blends in, but then this opposite side I did blue as well, and just kind of marked it with its top layer, and then just very quickly did those little striations. You have to remember when you're using lovely layers, because it does all this embossed detail, even if your coloring is just meh, it's still going to look good. Because of it. Here's where I'm getting that missing piece that I previously forgot. So that way he's all gray in those areas. And now I've separated them out. So I have a green section, a pink section, and a blue section. And I am going to use green, pink, and blue Perfect Pearls. Now you can use your Versamark ink and swipe over this, or a Versamark pen. I happen to have the Ranger Distress embossing pen, and it was just easier. It was just less mess. They also have cubes if you buy the kit of Perfect Pearls, that it comes with a perfect medium that you can use to get the Perfect Pearls to stick as well. This I just found to be, like I said, much easier. And then I can go in with each color and kind of pounce on where they need to be. This pink one is called Gumball. So I'm just going to pounce that on the pink part. And do I think that you could use the turquoise over all of them? Yeah, for sure. I do think that. But since I had the colors, I figured I might as well use them. This green is called Zinnia, and then the blue is a turquoise. It is a pale blue. And so It is very subtle. It's hard to see on the camera at all, but in real life, especially since we have that open area of wing and like belly that is not iridescent at all, it really shines. It's so pretty. Perfect pearls are some of my favorites. And also I'm cheap and they're super inexpensive. So big fan of those. And now we're just going to build everything. We're just going to put the whole thing together. So this is, once you have figured out the pieces, which we obviously did because we were, going through and coloring them. Once you figure out what each piece is, it comes together super easy. So his top of his body goes on, and then his tail feather took me a second to kind of get this one lined up. Because I was going to have to cover up a little bit of that blue. But I find that putting down the pieces with my tweezers and then picking it up in my hand and kind of scooching them, that's why I really love liquid glue for any sort of like builder dies like these, because it gives you the opportunity to scooch them. It isn't, an immediate bond. These are, like I said, this is just a couple of different ways that you can get this look with maybe things that you already have inside your craft room, or maybe, it's something that you've been, hey, I wanted to try perfect pearls, and now this is just another application that you can use them. Or, I saw that foiling embossing powder and I really wanted to know if it worked. It does, as far as I can tell. I think there's a lot of really fun ideas, and sometimes it's fun to just experiment, especially when it's something that you really love the look of, like I do. I love rainbows. I love that, iridescent or pearlescent look to things. I think that each one of these has merits for different things. And in the 4 cards, like I chose to use, 4 different mediums, but could I have done each medium the same way? Yeah, I probably could have. Well, it might have been hard to foil my hummingbird. That one might have been a bit of a challenge, because the foil is hard to add color to. But because the opal is so transparent, I might have been able to add color underneath them. That maybe is a future experiment, putting the opalescent on the uncolored cardstock. So this does have a die for the eye, but I actually chose to use a pearl for the eye, just so that it would kind of stand out a bit. And then here are all of our little buddies that will go on our cards. Like I said, I will do the coloring and the putting together of the cards in another video if you're interested in seeing that. But I hope that these experimenting kind of videos are really helpful to you. They're obviously helpful to me because I get to learn all kinds of different ways to get the look that I'm looking for. So thank you guys so much for your time. I always appreciate you, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.